Hello and welcome back to AD Draws. Today we're going to be finishing off by adding some colour to the toad that we drew in the previous two videos. Just going to be using some Copic markers, partly due to the speed that it takes to actually, how quickly you can add colour to an image with Copic markers, and just because I don't want the video to be too long. In some of the other videos I'll be using more of my chosen sort of media, which is normally coloured pencil, but yeah, today, like I say, it's just going to be some Copic markers. Just this piece is kind of an example of how I would normally look to draw, which is kind of coloured pencil on tone tan paper. I find it gives quite a good effect and gives you kind of a bit more vibrant colours and kind of lifts it off the page a little bit more. This image is kind of available to view on my Instagram, as will be the finished image once we've finished colouring it. So I'll move this out the way and you will see, here he is, the little chap, Toad from last time. So first and foremost, let's get in there with some of the yellows, just because it's kind of like one of the smallest bits, just to kind of warm up a little bit. Now with these Copic markers, they are alcohol-based markers. They are quite expensive. You can get other alcohol-based markers as well, but the thing that Copic always sell because of is their brush tips. And most artists that I know of who use Copics will almost never use the chisel tip, which is the other end of the marker itself. Now, as I mentioned, these are really quite expensive, and for people starting out at art, they are probably not the best thing to start with. But if you're a bit more experienced, then the finish that you can get with these is very, very good. They do blend together very well, and you can get a very impressive, smooth finish with them. And like I say, the brush tips themselves are fantastic. They allow you to get in to even the tightest little bits of detail. So I start just by outlining, and then just doing a kind of a block fill within this. So as soon as you've got it down on the paper, you'll notice that it does start to blend. Now that first layer will look a bit streaky, but as you go over it with more layers of the same pen, the alcohol that's there on the paper will actually cause it all to blend together. And that's where you get the smooth, colourful finish that a lot of people look for. The other benefit of these markers is the fact that you can blend lots of different colours together, and you've got various different darker shades that you can get in there. So now I'm just adding a bit of extra colour and a bit of extra shadow on here, and as long as you work quite quickly, you can start to get kind of a bit more depth into your images in the particular places that you want to get those colours in. I have, for the sake of time, got all of the colours ready for this, so that should speed up the video, because I'll be going through this quite quickly, but you can take as long as you like on these, and you can get some really, really impressive finishes when you do take a bit longer. So I'm just going back in with the original colour here, just to get a bit more depth. And that's one of the brilliant things about these, is that you can go over layer after layer after layer, dependent on the paper stock that you use. So this is blending card, so this is kind of more specifically designed to take the ink from these. If you tried to use these on sort of copier paper or something like that, then what you would actually find is that you wouldn't get a very good finish. It would eat up the paper because of the alcohol, and yeah, like I say, it just wouldn't look particularly good. Moving on then to kind of carry on the rest of Toad's jacket. I'm gonna start with a blue base and then come in again with some shadows here. Now I'm expecting this Toad to come out a little bit more vibrant than you would normally see him, but that's kind of quite indicative of my style in general. I do like bright colours in general, but particularly in the art art that I do. So kind of quite a lot of the pieces that I do are kind of a really kind of bright colours. They do kind of pop when you use the coloured pencils that I use, which happen to be Prismacolor Premier coloured pencils, which, yeah, those are again a very high quality, very soft coloured pencil, which you can blend together by kind of layering lots and lots of the layers of that coloured pencil. So as you can see here, it is a little bit streaky when you get that first layer on, but as soon as you start to go on over it, that's when it starts to smooth out, and that is when these Copics really do come into their own, because the finish that you can get after you've put that second layer in is much better. Now I know that a lot of people say you should always colour in the same direction to avoid streaks, but with these, because they do blend, it's not quite so much of an issue that you would have with some other pens. So as you can see there, you've got kind of quite a strong base colour there, and then going to go in with a much darker blue. I have gone over the yellow a little bit. However, the other thing with these is, because they are quite because they are alcohol based, you can actually use the lighter colours to lift some of the darker colours if you have sort of made any mistakes or any bits that you're not quite happy with. So I will do that after I have kind of added in a bit of this darker tone, and then mix it back in with the original colour, just to smooth everything out a little bit. So there goes little arms there, cute little arm. Come in underneath that with there, go back to the original, and then just go over that same area again and try and get that to blend through a little bit. As I mentioned before, it does help to work quite quickly with these, and this is going to be, like I said, much more of a sketchy image, just to demonstrate some of the things. So where I mentioned that yellow that's gone over, if I take the yellow back out, I can actually go over where it was, and it'll lift a bit of that blue that's bled across off the page and lighten it up. Now it's not always perfect, but at least it gives you can merge out some of the blue that you had that's gone where you didn't quite want it to go. And then if you use a clean piece of paper, you can just make sure you clean the tip, and that gives you a bit more control over it, and make sure that the colour doesn't stay, particularly if you're using a lighter colour there. So moving on now, we're going to go for his nice little hat, which isn't his head, which is still a very weird concept to me, because growing up I always thought that this was what his head looks like. In fact, yeah, if you didn't know that at all, then yeah, it is a hat. Don't search for the videos because it will haunt your dreams. But let's go in and get his little mushroomy hat finished with some of this blue. And you can see, well, hopefully the camera will be picking up, that you can see as you go over that second time, the alcohol in the ink really does start to pull it together into a single blob of colour rather than streakiness. So I found these because I was looking for something that gave a real clean finish. So I started by using acrylics, or trying to use acrylics. Really, still my brushwork isn't particularly brilliant. And like some of the finishes that I was getting, I wasn't happy with. And obviously if you are working in paint, then there's a lot more preparation that you need to do, because you need water to wash the brushes, you need a safe space that you can not worry too much about getting paint everywhere. And so read some articles, went on YouTube, went to art shops, asked around, and these were the pens that kind of people were suggesting. And once I tried them, take a bit of getting used to with the brush tips and with the way that the ink works, but once I'd got used to them, then I really did start to feel that they were giving me the effect that I'd always been looking for, which was that one single continuous block of colour. I would still say that these are not as good as coloured pencils in terms of achieving that kind of aim, but they're also quite a lot quicker, because where you've got a brush tip here, if you're using coloured pencils, then actually you've got a lot more layers, a lot more strokes to actually do in order to get that same smooth effect. So I'm still very new at using these relatively to other people out there, getting used to them, but I do love them, I really do. Each and every time I use them, I get a bit more familiar with them. So now we're going to come in and give him his flesh tones. Now flesh tones, they do specific packs of these Copics, and each one of these pens is very expensive, at about £4 or £5 a pen depending on where you go. If you're buying them individually in the packs, I'd like to say you can get a big discount from that, but you really can't. They are the best that is in the market, and they do them in two sizes. So this and the Copic Sketch, which is a lot bigger, they are refillable. So once you've got the pen, in theory, you buy the ink and you can just refill the markers themselves. But I haven't had to do that, luckily, yet. There's one or two pens that I've had that have run out, but because of the fact that I've been mid artwork at the time, I've actually gone and purchased more markers rather than actually getting the not quite sure what happened there, but we've restarted the video. Yeah, so I have actually gone out and replaced whole markers. It's not the right way to do it, and if I had the sketches, which hopefully one day I will get hold of, which are the same, like I say, but just bigger, hold more ink, then I will start to refill the pens themselves rather than actually getting new ones. So they do dry also lighter than they are when you first put them on, because of the alcohol evaporating, I'm assuming. So you can go back and deepen the colours after the fact. There's your little face toad. Get his chest coloured in as well. Don't need to be too careful on this particular bit because his arm is also there, which is surprisingly not going to be the same colour. That was where I went over a little bit there, but again you blend it out with the same colour and it cleans things up a bit. They do come with a colourless blender as well that you can get within the sets, and that is really good, particularly if you go over the edge of a picture, of lifting the colour out. This pen is actually getting a little bit low on ink, talking about the fact that I haven't had any run out, but it should be good for this picture at least. And then we'll have to get hold of another one before I want to colour any toad skin again. So the thing is with these as well is that you can ash your colouring. You can just leave it and then come back to it at a later point. I have got a slightly darker tone here, which I'm going to use for some of the darker patches around his face and the shadowing under the hat, and really come in sort of quite heavily with that round here, just to give him a much more three-dimensional look. He always was my character of choice in Mario Kart. But I'd be interested to know who any of you guys played as when you played. Obviously, if you were playing against me and you wanted Toad, then you'd have to be pretty quick off the draw to get there, because that's exactly where I was going as soon as the game was turned on. Not as quick as some of the other characters, but given the amount of walls that I used to bash into whilst I was playing the game, the fact that he accelerated very, very quickly was always the reason that I decided to go for him. So as you can see there, just by adding a bit of the darker tone in, for now you've got a much more rounded look to his little chubby arms. Again, just go in the darkest patches here, just to really accentuate the shadows. Right, now moving on to the shell itself, I'm going to go for, first of all, a base red. Now, any suggestions that any of you guys have, I'm not going to worry about these bits because I'm going to go over it with a much darker colour. Any suggestions that you guys have for anything that you'd like to see me draw, please do leave it in the comments. Also, please do follow and subscribe even to the channel to see, and click the notification button to see when I post new videos. I'm hoping that I will get some more videos up reasonably soon, but yeah, any ideas that you've got that you'd like to see in those videos, just let me know. I'm also going to be doing a longer kind of series of videos that I'm planning on doing, where I've got a more high art piece that's going to be in coloured pencil, and what I'm intending to do on those is just kind of record a video telling various different stories from my vast experience of life, and kind of try and bring in some sort of humorous anecdotes, just talk to you guys a little bit whilst I am drawing, and hopefully that will be incredibly interesting for all concerned. Right, moving on to a slightly darker red now to kind of come around the edges of this here shell. And just to get a more rounded appearance to it. That bit's actually going to be all in that red. This section, however, isn't. I'm going to have a little bit of a sparkly, shiny kind of light patch in the middle. So let's go for that light patch about here, and then just work in around the edges, and then blend it out with the original colour. Once I've added some of the depth in, switching in and out of these patterns again. Wrong side. Now, Toad is on his way. Again, have a bit of light coming off this here shell. And this is much cruder than some of the pictures. Now, if you want to see a much more refined sketch, so in the first video, one of the things that I showed, and I'll probably put an image in here as well, is Wall-E, and that kind of shows you a bit more of what you can actually achieve if you take a bit more time and care. But I'm just conscious that I don't want this video to be too long for all you fine people, so that you don't get too bored watching it. And again, what I might do, and it depends on what you want to see, is if you would like to see some time lapses rather than me droning on all the time, then just let me know and I can make sure that that's how you kind of see the colouring going in the future. So now, just to come in with the dark bits in between the shell. I'm using sort of fewer colours probably than I would normally on an image like this. Again, just for the sake of time, to bring these in together, I'd probably blend with more of the mid-tones and kind of get a bit more of a through fade on some of the colours, but where we are now, starting to get there. As you can see, you can get some nice effects. Just now onto his shoes. So just get some base colour in here of the brown, and then I will finesse things a little bit once I've put some of the base colours in. Once the bits have dried, that's when you can kind of get the real effects that you might be looking for. So actually, let's start over here. Give him his little show. Again, these look like they're almost his legs or his feet, but I'm sure that they are actually just shoes. And I'm pretty sure, and again, correct me if you're aware of it, that you never see Toad without any shoes on, because, well, in the Mushroom Kingdom, why would you want to go out without shoes on? There are lots of toads, obviously. There are lots of toad people in the Mushroom Kingdom, but this is, in my view, classic Toad. The Toad who spends most of his time speaking to Mario, his friend. Now I've got that base colour in, I will go in with a darker brown on this area underneath. Now, weirdly, I did choose Toad partly because of the simplicity of what he's like, but actually, once you get into the shadow and the shading, he's a bit less simple than I was expecting. So, bear with me with all the finishing touches for this little dude here. So let's just bring that in. It's going to be a bit of a shadow, and then just blend that bit out. And add some shadow on his little foot here as well. Some more shadow on the top of his foot here. Now these markers do come with with blending families, and what that means is that there are particular pens that are meant to blend together better, and those are the families. But those are the families themselves, but I just tend to kind of make it up as I go along a little bit. So where he's got the white, I'm going to add some grey shading. To give him a bit more depth, because actually what you'll find when drawing white or when looking at pictures is that very few things are actually white. You've got lots of shades of grey, and when you look at things in light and in shadow, there are things that you don't expect to be white that are, and things that you don't expect to be white that aren't, or the other way around. Now, that looks a bit odd for now, but when I bring in a much lighter grey around the edges, hopefully that, as I say, these will lighten out. And give you a bit more of an idea of how he is now. That I don't want quite so dark on his hat, so let's go for let's stick with the C1. And you'll see, particularly with the greys, they do really lighten up. And now to bring in some of the shell tones. It's Michelle. It's Michelle. point when I'm gonna stop soon. I've just got the other bit of his shell to do. Some of the bits of his face. I will come in with a slightly darker grey in some of these edges. On the back here. So a little bit of a camera fail there, partly because I was taking too long. So what I'm going to do is very, very quickly finish this off with the shell tones to get the finished piece ready for you. And I think, thinking about this in the future, there's gonna have to be some time lapses for you on the actual colouring bits, just because otherwise these videos are going to go on for a little while longer than you probably would like. But what I probably will do is post a normal speed and a time-lapse version of them, and then you get to choose which you'd like to see, the slowed down version or the speeded up version. So that's given the tone there. Let's come in with something a little bit darker, a grey around the edges to again give it the shadows. Shadows that it's going to look at here, all the way around. And there we have it, basically a finished piece of toad art. Just come in here with that pink to blend out the edges again. And to bring the colour in. Nearly forgot his mouth, so we'll just go in with this dark red to the inside of his mouth, and a much lighter red for his tongue. Give him that contrast in there. whilst he's the happy little chap. And in the end, just darken it up, a little bit there in the mouth as well. And add one more set of blues to the back of his head. Where he has got a darker spot on his hat, and also some more darker blues around his little tunic. Finish up some other slight darkening up, because as I said, he's lightened up as he's dried a little bit, and to really get that three-dimensional look that we want, then we have to come in again with these colours quite loosely, nothing too precise on this particular piece. And there we have it, really. That is Toad. One last thing to do is actually on his hat, come in with a real dark bit of shadow under there. Right at the back here. And bring that out somewhat around here. A bit more, a bit deeper. Again, fast and loose, nothing too bad, but going over the grey on the back of his hat. And final touches there. On to Toad. And there we have it, people. We now have a finished Toad. Took a bit longer than expected. Final thing to do is get this signed. And thank you all for watching. Please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I will be looking to do more videos like this. Probably throwing in some time lapse, as I say, because it's taken quite a lot longer than I expected. But there we go. He's finished for now, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do leave a like and let me know what you'd like to see me drawing next. I'm happy for it to be pretty much most things, and just would like to kind of understand and know what you're interested in seeing. Just looking to kind of expand on the types of things that I'm drawing anyway. So the more ideas that you give me, the more things that I can experiment with and find out what looks good and what doesn't. So there we go, just going over with a real lighter grey there, give his hat a bit more depth. And then I believe we are done. So thank you again. Please do subscribe to the channel, check out the Instagram, and look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.